Hello and welcome to Into Your Life podcast. I'm Lenka and I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host Natalie.
Hi, we invite you to join our weekly conversations about finding more life in one's life.
Well, what does it actually mean?
We have discussions with guests about ways to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives, both personally and professionally.
That sounds great. Let's go.
Today, we are very excited to have a repeat guest. I think this is the first time we are actually repeating a guest. We had Ellie Yule with us a year ago. She was talking about wise woman wisdom. But today, she's coming to us to talk to us about the solstice, especially winter solstice. Winter solstice is upon us. It's here, and what can we do about it? How can we celebrate it? Where does it come from? What is it all about? We hear these terms, summer solstice, winter solstice, but what does it really mean? And is there something that we can do to embrace it, celebrate it, encourage it, whatever it is that we need to do? So welcome, Ellie. It's so lovely to have you here with us again as our first repeat guest, which is wonderful. Welcome. And just as a recap, just remind people who you are, what it is that you're doing, and then we can get into the winter solstice.
Well, first of all, thank you both. I feel very honoured to be invited back to this wonderful podcast. Thank you so much. I am a women's mentor. I mentor women through transformational processes to help them go from stress to success. But I do it in the wise woman wisdom way, which is a way of combining the more magical aspects of life with the more practical aspects of life. It's very transformational. It's not an overnight fix, but it's an absolute joy to share the journey with these women and see them blossom into their full potential.
And as you said, it is a journey. It's not an overnight fix. And Lenka and I, we often talking about our journeys and things that we're trying to do. And we've been doing this podcast now 2 years. So there's quite a bit of journeying has happened. And it hasn't been an overnight or a quick fix. It'd be great if it was a quick fix. But then on the other hand, we wouldn't have the podcast because it is part of our journey and sharing the wisdom and gold nuggets from guests like yourself. But as I mentioned earlier, this is about the winter solstice. We are coming up. We are in the festive season, silly season, whatever type of season you want to call it. Christmas is around the corner. We are, deep in winter. And it's this winter solstice. It's something that I've heard about. I know a little bit about it, but not a lot. So I'm most probably more dangerous with what I do know than if I didn't know anything. But can you explain to us a little bit about what is the winter solstice and what does it mean, and how can we start to celebrate it as we are in this silly season or festive season? And Christmas, as I mentioned, is right there on the doorstep. But this is a different thing. This isn't a Christian religion. This isn't necessarily a religion. So what is winter solstice and where does it come from?
Well, the winter solstice is one of the 4 quarter festivals of the year, and it marks the first official day of winter in the traditions, the older traditions. And it represents the shortest day and the longest night, which is really quite significant. I find the equinoxes and solstices very powerful markers on our year as we go through the wheel of the year. And the winter solstice, representing shortest day and longest night, reminds us that even when we feel we are in the longest, darkest night ourselves, that the light always returns. So winter solstice is a celebration of hope for the returning light after the dark months of winter. And it's a reminder that it never stays dark for long. So always focus on the light, always think about the light. It always returns, it always comes. Now, traditionally, the winter solstice celebrates the reappearance of the sun and the rebirth of the fertile land, which has been barren throughout the winter months. This is a way, although it signifies the beginning of winter, and we're going into a couple more months of cold, dark, barren times, the winter solstice is like our affirmation that the light will return, our affirmation that there will be rebirth and regrowth. Now, for us on a more personal level, the winter moons are about embracing the darkness and using it for introspection, reflection, and thinking about your plans for the coming year. And, you know, as the sun, there's not much sun in the winter, so it gives us permission to rest and a time to give thanks for the year that, you know, we've come through. And, you know, we do not give ourselves enough permission these days to just stop. And the winter moons are all about stopping, recharging your batteries, spending time with your loved ones, enjoying the nurturing embrace of your home. In Wales, we have a saying, cwtch. It's time for cwtching in. Cwtching is like snuggling in, getting cozy. I think it's like hygge, is the other. Is that Swedish people? I can't remember now.
Hygge. It's hygge, and it's Danish.
It.
It's from Denmark, I think, or Swede.
That's the Danish version of it as well, isn't it? And it's like, well, yes, if we don't make the most of the times that we do get to stop and nurture ourselves, how can we ever recharge our batteries? Of course, the kind of tradition that I follow is a more pagan tradition, and it's known as Yule, which, funnily enough, is my surname. And Yule is one of the oldest festivals in the world. The winter solstice is the oldest festival in the world. And in the pagan tradition, it's when the Holly King takes over from the Oak King, and then the Oak King will return on summer solstice. And one of the other things I like to do at this time, this time of slowing down, resting, it gives you a chance to clear clutter on all levels before the new year, both internally and externally, because when you're really busy during the year and building up to the festive season, everything gets manic. So many things just go by the wayside. So externally, our homes and gardens tend to accumulate clutter, you know, over the year. So it's a good time to have a clear out, you know. It's about creating space for the new that wants to come in for you in the new year. But if we're completely clogged up with everything, you have to create space for the new to come in. So why not prepare for the new year by doing that? So you can do that on the sort of more physical, practical level, but also internally. Over the past year, you will have accumulated mental and emotional clutter. And this is baggage that you don't need to carry into the new year. It's a time to let go of petty grievances, you know, do some journaling around forgiveness, because the winter moons are the season of shadow work. And when we embrace that and take the opportunity to let go of what's holding us back, because that kind of baggage does hold us back, we're creating space energetically within ourselves, and that will make you feel lighter. And who doesn't want to feel lighter going into a brand new year? And another thing that you can do to honor the winter solstice is by representing the light with candles and fires. You know, if you've got your own fire, I mean, it's just wonderful to have fires at this time of year. And a great exercise I recommend to my clients to do, and it's something I do quite often, is to write down on a piece of paper what you want to let go of, and then throw it in the fire. And as you discard it into the fire, you are letting go. It's a physical act of letting go, because fire transmutes, and the fire will, as it transmutes, it also burns away any lingering karma, which frees you and frees them. But if you don't have a fire, you can do it by rolling up your sheet of paper, twisting it, and then burning it safely in a flame-resistant, container. And make sure that all the words have been burnt down to complete ash, so that you've completely transmuted it all. And then you can scatter the ash to the winds as a way of letting go, or you can feed your garden with it because it's nutritious for the soil, and then that will help rebirth, regrowth. One of the other lovely traditions, and I have a personal tradition with this as well, the tradition of bringing holly and ivy into the home. And there's a reason for that. And yes, it goes back to our ancient pagan roots, but both plants bring protection into the home. And when you bring it into your home, you are protecting the home and its inhabitants during this festive season, because there are lots of different kinds of energies around at this time of year, as you know. And when you have guests coming or you're sharing your space with other people, you want it to be as safe and as beautiful as possible. And so by bringing these natural allies into your home, you can do that. My personal tradition is I love to cut down the holly and ivy on winter solstice. It's my own little ritual. And I'll stand in front of the tree or the plant and I will connect with the spirit of it. I will ask permission of it. Please, may I have some for my home? And then when I feel that the permission is granted, I will then take what I need, but I won't take any more than that. And it really is quite a lovely meditative thing to do on solstice, and then, you can decorate your home and then you can light your candles, and it's a lovely thing to do. Oh, another thing you can do with the lovely evergreens from outside is you can make your own smudge sticks with pine, fir, cedar. And I like to add rosemary because rosemary is a way of acknowledging the ancestors. Rosemary is for remembrance, and it's a time of the ancestors, as I'll explain next. And when you make your own smudge sticks, I mean, if you throw them into the fire, I mean, it's just the most divine smell. It's just wonderful. And of course, they all have healing and cleansing properties as well. And but you can dry them, you can hang them up, you can make your smudge sticks and dry them. And when they're fully dried, you can then smudge your home with it as a cleansing ritual. But yeah, talking about the ancestors, my Native American elders taught me that the winter solstice is on the north of the medicine wheel, and it's a time of gratitude. It's a time to remember the ancestors and loved ones who cannot be here to share our festival this year with us. But wherever they are, they still like to celebrate with us. So if we light candles in remembrance of them, we will draw them to us as well. And we will feel them. You will feel them. It's quite lovely. I tend to put some little candles by the photos of my loved ones, to do that. Well, of course, having an Irish background, the Irish would celebrate anything. So we'd have a right hoolie at Christmas, and there'd be people everywhere and food everywhere, and it'd be absolutely wonderful. Something I used to do when I was training as a shamanic apprentice with my Celtic elders, every winter solstice we had an anipi, which is a sweat lodge. And that was very special, very sacred. You could step away from all the festive madness and get into this beautiful space with a group of people who were there for the same reason. Mind you, there's nothing quite like standing on frozen ground dressed in just a towel on a cold December night in the pitch black darkness. But oh my goodness, they were great times. But I have to admit, I mean, after being in that beautiful space where we did prayers for gratitude and we gave thanks for the year, and not just for ourselves, but on behalf of all our relations, our global relations, our universal relations. It was a bit of a shock going back into 3D land after that, with the lights and the franticness of people rushing around getting ready for Christmas. And many a time I longed to still be in that sweat lodge. So, with the busyness of Christmas, I think it's really important, if you can, carve out 5 or 10 minutes for yourself. Just create a little sacred space for yourself where you can just gather yourself back in, bring yourself back into you, take a few deep breaths, and remember that it's a time of gratitude, even when the kids are driving you absolutely nuts. You know, and I think one of the important things to remember is that on the winter solstice, it's such a significant point on the year. And during the festive season, we always wish each other peace. And I think this year, more than ever, we need to focus on peace. Because if we want to see peace in our world, then it starts within ourselves. So please make peace with yourself, make peace with others, and please touch others with your peaceful presence, because they need it. And that's what the winter solstice is about for me.
Thank you, Ellie. Wow, that is a huge amount of information, and so much information that I think we're done, aren't we? Come on, Lenka, time for a cup of tea, we're done. But there's a huge amount, and I want to just go back a little bit just for our audience, because they might not have heard some of the terms that you've used. So it's just explaining. But one thing that really resonated with me is that taking that time, just slowing down. And this is what, you know, Into Your Life is about having more life in one's life. And yes, giving ourselves time. So using the winter solstice as a lovely excuse or a reason to just step back. And I like how you said about having peace with ourselves and embracing our ancestors or family or friends who are not with us anymore. So I really that really resonated with me. But one thing that you mentioned, so we're going back a little bit, is the shadow work. And now this is something that not everybody might have heard of or necessarily understand what it is. Can you explain a little bit what you mean by shadow work, and how maybe during this time how can we start to do the shadow work, and what does it sort of entail? What is it? What does it mean? Just to help our audience to get an idea of shadow work.
We're a mixture of light and dark. We all have light and dark within us. Our shadow self is actually an ally of ours. Our shadow self will present itself when we react to something. And we may have a knee-jerk reaction to something. We may just explode about something. And that's our shadow side, because most people are afraid of their shadow. They don't think they have it. They just want to focus, especially in the new ages, they just want to focus on love and light. And they're thinking, honey, you've got to do the shadow work. If you want to increase your light, you have to honor that there's shadow in you. However, your shadow is actually your friend, your ally. Your shadow has protected you all your life. And we come into conflict with it when, say, you're starting something new and you're daring to take that leap, or, you know, and what happens is your shadow will kick in and say, oh, but you can't do that. You know, it's not safe. Or you will manifest reasons not to do something. And that's shadow trying to protect you, because shadow doesn't know the territory that you're going into, the new thing that you're going into. And it's funny, because I wanted to avoid my shadow side for years. As a triple Scorpio, I had you know, most people were terrified of me. You know, I'm thinking, but I'm beautiful. What's wrong with you? No, I had a shadow side too. And in order to progress on your personal pathway or your spiritual pathway, the shadow needs to be acknowledged. And it's funny, because, you know, when you see your own shadow on the ground, your own shadow looks so huge in comparison to the size of you. Well, actually, your shadow is not that big at all. That literally is just the sun casting a shadow. But most people think that because they're so afraid of their shadow, that their shadow is this big, awful part within themselves. It's not. It's just a friend and ally who has protected you since you were a child. But when you're a grown-up and you really want to get on in your life, either in a personal way or in a business way, you have to sort of at one point, particularly from midlife onwards, start to deal with that shadow stuff that kind of got stuffed away when everything else was going on. And a pivotal time for women when that happens is their menopause, because all the stuff that you weren't able to deal with as a teenager got stuffed away. Menopause, midlife is the time when that comes to the surface to be dealt with. And, you know, as soon as you acknowledge it, anything that you acknowledge and bring into the light, the fear about it dissolves immediately because you have brought it into the light, you've acknowledged it. So it's the fear of doing it that's worse than actually getting on and doing it. But I would recommend that you do work with somebody who understands about the work and can help you through it, you know, because it's a lot quicker. And also, your shadow will sabotage you. Your shadow will find every excuse under the sun for you not to do something because it's trying to protect you. But you have to think, you know, wait a minute, who's in charge here?
Yeah, that shadow work is a lot of fun. But it's you know, as you were talking, one of the things that I was visualizing is the light shines brightest in the dark. And I mean, if you have a candle or a flame or just a torch or whatever, when you have that darkness at nighttime, that light shines really brightly. And as you said, what we're wanting to do is connect with our light, connect with the light side. But when we shine the light into the dark, it can actually shine brighter. I think I've just made sense, but good luck anybody trying to understand that. So thank you for that. That's really helpful, and hopefully it will help some of our audience to get an idea. And you use the words like fear, and I'm sure like things like guilt, all this baggage that we bring from childhood, from teenage years, and carry it with us. It is about just almost finding a way to forgive ourselves our mistakes, or to forgive ourselves the choices that we made, and not carry that you know, that pack your bags, you're going on a guilt trip type feeling. So it's just having that understanding of what you mean by shadow work, because it can sound quite scary. I know when I first heard that phrase, you know, do the shadow work, I was like, oh my word, I've got to dig deep and find that awful side of me. But having, you know, started to read up a bit about it, and obviously talking with you, Ellie, about it, I'm beginning to have an understanding of what shadow work is. That's why I just wanted you to explain it for anybody else out there who's thinking, oh my God, shadow work, that sounds really awful, that sounds terrible. But it doesn't have to be, which is a great thing.
You described it really well when you talked about the lit candle in a darkened room, because while people fear doing the shadow work, what they don't realize is that their light is so much stronger. The light will always overcome the dark. So even when you get really, really down about what's happening in our world, if we all focus on the light and sending love, that will conquer all. It will always conquer all. It's just not dwelling too much. Don't dwell too much on what's wrong. Focus on what you can contribute, whether that's a prayer, a candle, whatever. And remember that your light is stronger than anything else you'll ever face, you know.
Thank you for that. And yeah, it is great. And especially for our listeners, is their light is bright, and allow it to shine. Another thing that you mentioned, and this is something that I do know about, it's something I have used in the past, is smudge sticks. And I like the idea that you said you can create your own, especially with the rosemary. Rosemary has such a wonderful scent. And as you said, the rosemary brings out sort of your connection to the ancestors and to those that are not with us. Can you, again, just for those who are not sure of what is a smudge stick, and where's the benefits in, other than the nice, lovely smells, but why would one use why would one use a smudge stick? Try to say that fast. But what is a smudge stick, and how can we create our own if we wanted to, or why would we bother?
It's a smudge stick is something that we've copied from the Native American Indians, and it's been very popular with people who do space clearing. Space clearing consultants tend to use it. Some of my elders were very angry about this, that other people who were not Native American people were using one of their, this very sacred herbs to them. Sage is incredibly sacred. It's a ceremonial herb. And they would only ever use it in ceremony. So they weren't happy that there's a load of people that didn't know how to respect the plant are wafting these sage sticks around their houses to do space clearing without realizing the ceremonial attachment to it and what it means to those people. Yet other elders, they're quite happy about it. Personally, I save sage for ceremony and ritual because obviously I've learned from the native elders and the Celtic elders. So I make my own. We have mugwort growing wild. I have lavender in my garden, and my favorite combination is mugwort and lavender. I mean, that makes a lovely smudge stick, and it's like, if we use our own indigenous plants, then we are connecting with our own ancient indigenous wisdom, which is passed to us through the plants. I wish people could understand that plants are not just green things growing around us. They have so much that they help us with. And so you can create your own. It's a matter of cutting them, bending them over, and binding them with some cotton thread. And then you wind it around the stem so you've got something to hold on to. And then you can make a loop and hang it up. And I dry things in my airing cupboard, or hot press, as some people call it. And that's the easiest way to dry them out. But when you light a smudge stick, I always recommend you have some kind of dish underneath, because as the small bits of plants will dry, and they can drop on your carpet and you get little singe marks on your carpet if you're not careful. So have a little dish as you're smudging around. But smudging is a Native American tradition, similar to the way like Eastern Indians will use incense for the same purpose. Smoke is a cleansing agent, and the combination of fire, the flame that the smoldering flame that you've got creating the smoke, combined with the healing properties and attributes of the herbs, creates this lovely smell and actually helps to clear your environment. I hope that explains it a bit better.
Yeah, that explains it really well. And it also goes to show how much knowledge we've lost. You go into these, soul, spirit, mind shops, or the crystal shops, or these gemstone shops, whatever they call themselves, and you pick up incense, you pick up crystals, you pick up bits and pieces, but there's not that knowledge behind why to do something. And I've often heard, well, just smudge sage around your house to cleanse it, but without really knowing, where does that come from? What is the reasoning behind it, and how do you do it? I mean, you can just make a flame and do it, and go around waving your arm around and that, but we've lost that meaning behind things. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted you to come back and talk to us about, especially this time of year, this winter solstice, is bring back the meaning behind it. It's not something that was just made up, in the last few years, but it's something that's talked about a lot, but there's no real understanding of what does it mean. And I never knew that the winter and summer solstice was one of the oldest ceremonies, one of the oldest sort of ceremonies that one can do. I just knew that it was pre-Christian or pre-religion, but I didn't realize how old it was. And I think now, with so much turmoil going on in the world and so much uncertainty and fear, it is a great time to go back and learn a bit more. Where do we come from? Where do these ideas come from? Why do we use sage for something or rosemary for something? And why bother with, doing the smudging and that? So thank you for sharing that. And, going with finding out what this time of year means, especially us in the Northern Hemisphere. I know those in the Southern Hemisphere are in the summer solstice, which is something different. So I think we're going to need you to come back and talk to us about that in the summer. But for the winter, we're going into these dark nights, dark days, because in the UK, we don't often have sunshine during the day. I think it's different where Lenka is, and I'm sure she will share that with us. But it is this almost going inward. A lot of animals hibernate at this time of year. They go into their little caves and off they sleep for 2 or 3 months. But us as humans, we don't do that. We don't give ourselves that space to rest because it's go, 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 go. And I love how you've really brought in about what this time of year means, what it means to have these darker, longer nights, colder days. What can we do to nurture ourselves, to really help ourselves to get ready for the coming year, for the spring, for the summer, that the promise of the sun coming back, as you said earlier, the promise that days will get longer, nights will get shorter. But right now, it's a time for kuch, as you said, or hygge, or comfort, cozy, hot chocolate, just that keep warm, just slow down, just have that space, acknowledge those emotions that you have that are most probably more negative or bringing you down. Where do they come from? What do they mean? That shadow work, as you said, and if you can, go out into nature and find these beautiful plants that we have, the holly and the ivy that you talked about, and it's the holly and the ivy, and bringing those in, or find some rosemary and dry that out so that you can start to really, I don't know, find a way to reconnect with you, reconnect with your own humanness, your uniqueness, your that special spark, shine that light. So thank you. I really appreciate what you've been sharing with us today, and guiding us and teaching us as well.
Well, if you look at nature in your own garden or walking down the street, you just follow what the plants do, the natural cycles of life, the natural wheel of the year. If you're an energy sensitive like me, you become very aware how quiet plant life becomes, how quiet the trees become as they withdraw their energy from outward. As they lose their leaves, they bring their energy back into themselves and down deep into themselves in order to store the energy they're going to need for when they need to burst forth and have the energy to blossom, to leaf up in the spring. And that's why we're guided to do the same thing. Our human bodies are not designed to keep going 24/7 non-stop at the pace that our modern world is pushing us. We have to slow down. And so if we observe the natural wheel of the year and the cycles of nature, then we're doing ourselves a big favor and looking after ourselves better.
I loved listening to all that you've been talking about, and you pretty much covered the topic so beautifully. So I really enjoyed just taking the back seat in this episode and just listening to you ladies talking about this. To kind of close off this wonderful seasonal topic, is there anything else, Ellie, that you would like to add? So something that we did not ask you about and you feel valuable to mention, or is there the last kind of a summary and golden nugget that you would still like to include and kind of reiterate to our listeners and viewers?
I just wanted to share with you, finally, it's my favorite winter solstice prayer / chant. On this midwinter night, returns the light. The fragrant Yule log burns so bright. We give thanks for the old year past and for the good to come that will last. Cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg and pine soothe our senses and our minds. Together on this longest night, we vow to love with all our might. So let's hold hands, dance and sing, for the best of things will soon begin.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Ellie, for coming to talk to us again and unraveling some of the mysteries that surround this special day of the year, that surround this time that for lots of people could be quite dark and scary and uncomfortable, especially in the world that we live in right now. So thank you for bringing so much light and positivity and insight into our lives. And if there's anyone out there who would like to connect with you and get more wisdom and learn from you, where would be the right place for them to find you online?
They can contact me via my website, ellieyule.com, or they can contact me via social media. I'm on LinkedIn. And thank you both so much for inviting me back to talk about one of my favorite times of the year.
Fantastic. We have enjoyed it, and I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed listening as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your wisdom. Thank you, listeners, for being here, and we'll hear you in another episode sometime soon. If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.